From aliens to zombies. The next game you voted me to take a look at was the DLC for Dying Light: The Following. And based on the initial reviews and Steam reviews, it seems like Techland has a major hit on their hands. Except it's not all puppies and sunshine here. Well, it wasn't going to be in the first place, zombie apocalypse and all, but this 1999 expansion that came out on February 9th does have a bit of content to bring to the table. It does extend the original experience and gives you more ways to massacre the undead. But do the new additions to the franchise mirror AMC of all things? Is Dying Light: The Following the Fear the Walking Dead to the hit Walking Dead? And the real question, have I gone crazy in this review process? More crazy than before, at least. Regardless, before I begin my ramblings, this game was reviewed with a key that I originally received via TechRaptor. I just sort of found that the DLC came with it. While there will still be a review at good old Raptor Plaza, you should know this info because of FTC guidelines, as well as the whole morals thing, you know? Let's start with the story, because of course that's what you start with in a game about zombies and parkour. The following takes place shortly after the events of the original game, as the survivors of Horde are attempting to find the cure to the zombie outbreak. However, they are running out of time, and the key antiviral Zombrex, Anticin. A stranger from outside the city comes in and gives them a clue that there seems to be people from a village that haven't been turning despite being bitten. This is what causes our hero, Kyle Crane, to leap into action. His job is to investigate these claims and figure out what is the truth lying in this mysterious rumor. The miracle cure is in the hands of the Faceless, which is basically a religious, cultish-like organization, and we all know how well cults and religions end up in games like this. And no, that's not a spoiler. I'm guessing that's the route they take. This is a first impressions, remember. Now, the Faceless do have a mysterious element to them, and their presence adds some depth to the story. But I can't sit here and not say that I'm getting an Order of the Solar Temple vibe from them. You probably don't know what I'm referring to. Well, let's just say that things don't end well for that group in the end. And I'm guessing this story doesn't have a great payoff either. Mostly because I honestly think this may have been cut from the original game, and has now been retrofitted to the DLC. The game is on par in terms of writing from the first game. And here's the first difference I have from the main reviews I've seen out there. Because everyone is saying that the writing here is bad. And I guess I'm not seeing it. Because while it's not War and Peace, it's not as bad as people are saying. There's some reasonable characterization, there's good drama, and interesting subplots added to an overall narrative. See, the game has done a good job of actually making missions with good reasons behind them. Reasons I can actually believe in the world of Dying Light. This includes the far-fetched ones as well. For example, there's this kid that wants his package from his mother from the post office. Yes, an adult asking for that wouldn't make a lot of sense in this crisis. But a kid unaware from what's going on in the world? Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Everything else has also been reasonable, and makes sense given the struggles of the people involved. Getting transformers back to get the power on, finding herbs for medicine, etc., etc. This new area to explore does feel a bit more world-encompassing. While the original game did have moments with large open areas outside the town, the bigger open countryside here allows you to get a bit more variety with beaches, caves, and mountains. It feels a bit more alive, which is weird when you consider it's filled with the undead. But regardless, I like the change up here. The tall grass here feels like someone mixed up the sound of music with a zombie apocalypse. And I'm trademarking that before someone makes a movie out of it. And what's a nice landscape without some blood and guts to be scattered among it? The following feels significantly more difficult than the last game, which may be surprising to some, as pretty much all the base mechanics here have stayed the same. So what's changed here specifically, you may ask? Well, the enemies. The game of zombies have more bite to them, literally. It took more swings of a melee weapon to take creatures down, and I found myself running a bit more than towards the end of Dying Light, where I was just slashing and hacking through the rest of the zombie hordes. This is a good thing, as Dying Light got pretty damn easy with the zombies towards its midway point. Bigger enemies take significant work to take down now, and the new bosses are really challenging, almost requiring you to grab a friend or two. There's good overall improvements here, but if you're expecting the same as the original game, you've got another thing coming. In terms of additional weapons, the biggest would be the crossbow, which allows for you to craft bolts. Now, at the hard difficulty, I really did love this weapon for one reason. It wasn't overpowered, but was a high skill weapon. A bandit could take 3 to 4 bolts in the chest to take him down, for example, but one good headshot and he was dropped. Regardless, the overall tweaks to combat make for a better experience in almost every case here. There's a lot to do in terms of the side missions of the game, and there's some good variety here. Although most of the quests involve saving someone, killing zombies and bandits, rinse and repeat. But it still finds a way to be fresh, thanks to environments and the use of parkour and combat skills. The addition of vehicles into the game does change things a tiny bit, as there are secondary races and even a bounty system. You'll have to deal with new volatile pits, and in terms of overall content, it seems to be there. I will say that while I appreciate the challenges and bounties added here, they are very hit and miss for me. In particular with the challenges, they just sort of pop up out of nowhere, and while it's great that I don't have to get out of the car and all, sometimes you lose a bit of time just trying to reorient yourself on the challenge. I failed challenges by going outside what seems to be a challenge zone, which is not indicated in any sort of way. It's rather haphazard. Speaking of vehicles, the driving controls here are good, despite the fact that the gameplay will be very similar to an episode of Dukes of Hazzard mixed with wacky races. You have control, but due to the rough environment and vehicle damage, you'll hit more trees than a lumberjack in the Amazon. Boy, that's somewhat depressing. Now, I'll openly admit, I'm not usually a fan of driving in games like this. It always feels tacked on in the end. But when getting out on the open road, this game can be very fun. That's when you get out on the open road though. More on that in a bit. But if you wanted to know if it's satisfying to run into zombies, yeah it is. With that said, your slug bug can take damage, and so you've got to bring out your one singular ratchet wrench that can apparently repair anything and everything, and put things back together. Good thing that Kyle is an expert mechanic, able to put together an engine via some screws and steel tubing. Okay, I know, I'm making fun of the game for not being realistic here, but it does the job. And frankly, it does give you more reason to try to upgrade your equipment and search throughout the map for more resources. It's a good addition to the game. But the opening monologue to this video of something bad present under the surface is probably still looming in your mind. See, while the game does add content and new mechanics, what it doesn't do is play off the small mechanics that were overlooked in the original game. Now, I did one game design video on it already, but let's take another example. With the addition of the buggy into the game, you now have bigger landscapes to traverse. In particular, long drives into the middle of nowhere. And here's where things break down. Remember, in the original game, all the game's travel was done by foot, and most everything was climbable, so you can get to wherever you were going without a direct route on the map. But that's where the downside of the car comes into play. There's things that the car can't drive over, and now you've got a decision to make. Do you abandon the car and possibly make a long trek by foot? Do you drive around aimlessly, hoping to find the right entrance? Or do you just force it in there? And guess what? Force it in there doesn't usually work, hence this scene. You have no idea how many times this happened to me. I guess I was way too impatient, but overall, this was really frustrating. This game has that annoyance factor. It's the annoying little kid that you can't scold in front of his or her parents and pulls pranks on you at every moment he or she can. Dying Light the following, I like the fact that you tried some different things other than climbing buildings. Now on the surface, I like the fact that this cave mission, I had to go underwater to try to find this kid. How the kid was able to survive this, I have no idea. But you know why he's stuck back there? He's lost. Because I'm lost. Sure, you've got this rope to guide you, but when you're underwater with no sense of direction because you're goddamn underwater, it's easy to end up going around in circles. And I hope you like having to do things again, because there's no exit in this case that will magically take you back to the beginning. You gotta do it all over again. See, despite the fact that this game came off the original Dying Light, there's a lack of polish here surprisingly, and the devil is really in the details. The game doesn't like you doing your own thing. In this clip, for example, this family was begging for me to help them. I wasn't sure how at first. I thought they needed rescue. So I looked for a way into the house and found it on the roof. And they weren't exactly surprised to see me there. In fact, they had no reaction whatever. Hello? Anyone there? Search and rescue here. Damn, they're really ungrateful. Well, they don't give a shit because the game expected me to close the gate before interacting with them. The immersion factor, it's now gone. But here's my biggest problem, and what really put me at odds with the game. One of the best parts of the original game for me was the parkour system. Finding your way up a set of houses, climbing from handhold to handhold. There was something natural in traversing the environment, and it still exists here. But it's such a minor part of the game now. Your grappling hook, your free running abilities, they are scattered in terms of when you have to use it. And that sucks for me, as that was one of the strongest elements of the original game, and what made me come back to look at this DLC. It did what I was afraid it was going to do, emphasize the car and de-emphasize the parkour system. The best way I can describe what Dying Light the Following was to me is with an analogy. The Following is to Dying Light what the Sega CD was to the Genesis. It takes elements from the original and makes you think, yeah, more of the Genesis, great. Except that once you get going and start playing, you realize that it's clunky, that it doesn't necessarily fit everything else that's going on here. You can't help but get the feeling that you're playing a game that was a remnant of its former self. Look, Dying Light the Following has a good chunk of what made the original game great. But in the same breath, I found that a lot of the mechanics that have been added don't work well in conjunction with the original ones. It's got great ingredients, but the mixture is all wrong. A lot of people have indicated this is an evolution of the game and its mechanics. I really disagree. It's disjointed, it's not connected very well, and while it was still enjoyable, it feels like a shell of its former self. Now, I'd recommend to take a look at other reviews, but honestly for me, the Following is passable, but not the revolution in DLC that people are making it out to be. It's not quite a zombie either, aka a completely hollow version of what it used to be. But it's starting to show signs of decay that makes you wonder. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you want to leave feedback on the video or have any more questions about the game, leave them in the comments section below. I have my last video on the top left and a related video on the top right. If you're not subscribed yet, you can hit that subscribe button. And if you want to support my work, I do have a Patreon link in the description below, along with Google+, Facebook, and my Twitter handle. Again, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.